It started with missing grocery funds. It culminated in a courtroom outburst. For years, rumors stuck to Christine Brown, labeling her as the spendthrift, the wife who couldn't budget. She was depicted as the culprit why the Brown family finances were perpetually on the edge of collapse. This wasn't an accident. It was a story built carefully, a drip of poison administered slowly that left her alone and questioning her own reality. But the truth has a tendency to come out. And in a surprising court fight that rocked the plural marriage world, the truth didn't just come out. It detonated. A years-long deception was revealed, leaving Robyn Brown embarrassed and Christine Brown clutching a $320,000 check and complete vindication. Hello, and welcome back to Reality Recap, your destination for only the best theories and inside information the mainstream won't report. If you are on Team Christine and you demand the whole truth come out, click that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for you right now. You don't want to miss a single post from us as this story continues. To understand just how large this victory is, we need to turn back the clock, not months, but years, even a decade. We must return to the Brown family's financial system, a confusing and cluttered framework they referred to as the family pot. On the surface, it was straightforward. Everyone's income went into one pool, and all of the household spending went out of it. The idea was to create unity and make sure no one went without. A financial reflection of plural marriage itself. But as we've pieced together through inside sources and years of on-screen evidence, the system was flawed from the start. It was built on trust that was never really there, and it was perfectly set up to be abused. The central charge, the one that had haunted Christine for almost 10 years, was one of being unable to control expenditures, namely on food. Food may seem insignificant, bordering on trivial, but with over a dozen kids in the household, the food budget was huge. Whoever maintained control over it controlled a significant portion of the family's disposable funds. The narrative prodded, initially quietly, then brazenly. By Kody and Robyn was that Christine's home was money-sucking. She was accused of purchasing name brands, not clipping coupons, and allowing her children to overeat. These weren't off-the-cuff remarks. They were strategic darts designed to belittle her and justify the widening difference in households. Remember the Flagstaff relocation. The family was drowning in debt, carrying multiple mortgages, draining money with rentals, and caving to the pressure. It was then that criticism of Christine intensified. We witnessed it in Kody's curt attitude towards her, his perpetual annoyance whenever money was mentioned in her presence. Insider reports of the period claim family budget sessions devolved into de facto trials, with Christine constantly on the stand. She'd arrived armed with a frugal budget to be greeted with distrust and patronizing comments by Kody, while Robyn sat next to him, bobbing her head in agreement as the responsible wife. Her go-to phrase, "We all need to tighten our belts," slogans now laced with irony. It was gaslighting at its best. Christine, a mom of 6 who had maintained her family on next to nothing for years, started questioning whether perhaps she truly was the issue. Was she drowning the family boat? She attempted to accommodate. She substituted with generics. She stretched each meal, but the gap in the family pot never went away, and the fault, directed by Kody and Robyn, never moved from her. It was never really about dollars. It was about worth. By labeling her as financially stupid, they were taking away her value within the family, bringing her down from contributor to burden. It was a form of control, keeping her in the basement, literally and figuratively. The turning point, the spark that fueled this lawsuit, didn't arrive with theatrics, but with a soft, gut-wrenching epiphany. It began, according to a source close to the situation who wished to remain anonymous, with a lost document. While she was packing away her life in Flagstaff for the relocation to Utah, Christine came across an old box of financial documents from the Lehigh era. There were statements for the so-called family grocery account. She had always been assured this story was simple, a debit card where money was put in once a month for her Janelle and Meri to spend on their homes. But as she idly turned over the pages, she saw strange transactions. A boutique she did not know. A salon treatment from a town she rarely went to. Small amounts in the overall picture of an enormous family budget. But they're all the same, small aberrations, kinks in the machinery. She dismissed it. Then, she was exhausted. She was trying to get out. Still, those words lingered. After she settled in Utah and recovered her strength, Christine started to go back over those years of fiscal fog. She relived old conversations, rewrote excuses, and viewed the patterns differently. She spoke with Janelle, the family's de facto accountant, who confessed she too had for a long time felt uncomfortable with the financial lack of transparency. Janelle, ever pragmatic, had attributed it to Kody's haphazard, disorganized approach to finances, but Christine's findings sowed a sinister suspicion. Perhaps it wasn't chaos, perhaps it was deliberate. This was the point at which the drama of the family gave way to a full-blown legal battle. Armed with her autonomy and silently goaded by a few of her adult children, Christine took a step that rattled the Browns to their foundations. She hired a forensic accountant. This wasn't about her divorce, that was already happening. This was about getting to the bottom of an extremely personal betrayal. Christine employed a small but robust legal team in Salt Lake City. They weren't one of those glamour corporate firms, but lawyers who had a track record of taking on financial abuse in family cases. Their initial action was subtle but ambitious, subpoenaing years of financial records for the Brown family company, Kody Brown Family Entertainment, LLC, as well as records for the family pot and those grocery accounts. The resistance was swift and strong. Kody and Robyn's attorneys sent motion after motion on the subpoenas, attempting to squash them. They labeled it harassment, asserting that Christine was a mere ex with an axe to grind on a fishing expedition. Their defense was that family finances were not public, and in leaving, Christine had waived her right to look back. For months, this pre-trial fight lingered largely behind the scenes, but Christine's attorneys refused to give up. They claimed that as an equal member of the LLC for the majority of its duration and as the top earner who contributed significantly to the family coffers, Christine was due full disclosure. The judge concurred, and in a flash the floodgates were opened. What the forensic accountant and lawyers discovered was, says an insider who has seen sections of the report, a knotty web of financial sleight of hand. The scheme was more complicated than anyone had envisioned. Funds from the show came into the LLC, then got routed between accounts, including the family pot, with minimal to no actual records. But the smoking gun, the linchpin of the case, was right under their noses, the grocery account. The accountant explained that this wasn't just a simple debit account by any means. It was really a line of business credit. For the last few years, one card in the entire line of credit had been accumulating the majority of charges, and whose name was on it, Robyn Alice Brown. But it didn't end there. The attorney's cross referenced the charges on this so-called grocery account with Robyn's reported activities and social media track record. The image that emerged was horrific. There were expenditures at high-end department stores, in destinations seen during family vacations, vacations that seemed to feature only Kody, Robyn, and her children. Exorbitant dinner checks that far exceeded any plausible grocery allowance. Online shopping from designer houses and jewelry stores. And worst of all, monthly payments with perfect correlation to funding Robyn's extensive Precious Moments figurine collection. It all flowed through an account that Christine was supposed to use for groceries, the same account that Christine had been accused of overspending. Now that Christine's attorneys were paying attention, they saw they weren't dealing with a mere request for reimbursement. They had an open and shut case of fraudulent misrepresentation and misappropriation of funds. But on top of that, they saw grounds for something even more substantial: emotional distress. For years, Christine had been subjected to targeted psychological manipulation, with her supposed financial incompetence used as the weapon. This wasn't just about stolen money. It was about years of stress, humiliation, and self-doubt she had carried because of the lie. The suit was brought, and it was explosive. Kody as well as Robyn were both sued as defendants. The complaint called for not only reimbursement of Christine's portion of the ill-gotten gains, but also substantial damages for the emotional distress that she suffered. When the news broke, the reaction was instantaneous and divided. Mainstream media dismissed it as just another ugly divorce battle, but for viewers of the show for years, for fans who had been piecing together the puzzle for years, it was jaw-dropping confirmation. All the suspicions, all the theories regarding Robyn's frivolous spending and unjust money apportionment were now part of a courtroom fight. Kody and Robyn's reaction, through their lawyer, was one of outrage and denial. They labeled the lawsuit as baseless and heartless, claiming Christine was doctoring history and poisoning the family name. They continued their previous narrative. Christine was irresponsible with money, and Robyn, obedient and thrifty wife that she was just doing what her husband told her to do. Robyn was framed as victim, the faithful wife unfairly targeted for her loyalty. Bold indeed. But in a legal sense, a catastrophe. In the lead, up to the trial, the mood became charged. Our sources said that the Browns were utterly broken. Janelle and Meri were in the middle of the crossfire, reportedly subpoenaed to testify by Christine's attorneys, a move which placed them in a no-win position. The kids were split too, Christine and Janelle's children standing solidly behind Christine, and Robyn's older children stepping up to defend their mother in public. Something that had been simmering in private became a full-blown civil war, not in Las Vegas Cul de Sacs, but in the bright light of a courtroom. The trial began on a chilly Monday morning in a crowded courthouse. Christine entered first, poised and graceful, her daughters Aspen and Mickelty alongside her, her attorneys beside her. She was no longer the defeated wife. She was firm, unwavering, exuding silent strength. Kody and Robyn entered a short while later. The difference was profound. Kody's rage was evident on his face, every step fueled by frustration. Robyn, dressed in modest, conservative attire, looked wan and weepy, already playing the part of the tortured martyr. Christine's lead lawyer, Hannah Sterling, a force to be reckoned with, a no-nonsense individual, began with a line that was crisp and lethal. She outlined the tale from the making of the family pot to the Flagstaff relocation. But it wasn't simply about dollar figures. She emphasized the human toll. She portrayed Christine as a woman who had stretched every dollar, reused tea bags, and shopped at discount stores while being accused of dragging her family down. She described the anxiety, the feeling of being under microscope, and the way her self-esteem dwindled over time. This case, Sterling asserted, her voice ringing out in the quiet courtroom, is about two things: theft of money, theft of a woman's dignity. We are here to take both back. When the defense took their turn, their attorney took a decidedly different approach. He painted Kody and Robyn as loving leaders of a messy home, making the best of an impossible fiscal setup. He contended the family pot was not a business partnership, but a personal religious system, and Christine's charges were from misconceptions and the resentment of a broken marriage. He characterized her as emotional, impulsive, and never quite comprehending how the finances were supposed to operate. He concluded by asserting the whole lawsuit was a publicity stunt. The first witness subpoenaed was Christine herself. She told her story for 2 whole days straight. Her voice was even, but emotion crept in occasionally as she spoke of times of financial shaming. She talked about a time in Las Vegas when she requested a little extra money to purchase a birthday cake for one of her children, only to be chewed out for 20 minutes by Kody on responsibility in front of Robyn. She explained to the court the Flagstaff relocation, when she had proposed having a more open system where every wife had her own budget. Kody had declined, wanting the pot in the middle, which by now was pretty much controlled by Robyn Cross. Examination was brutal. Robyn's lawyer attempted to portray Christine as being materialistic, referencing her desire for a bigger Flagstaff home and nicer furniture. He read the quotes from the program in which she complained about her difficulties. But Christine never faltered. "Yes, I wanted a nice house," she replied serenely. "I wanted what every other wife had. I wanted a house my husband would want to come to. What I did not want was to be made to feel like a beggar to be able to feed my kids, when money that could be used for shopping was being spent on collectibles and luxury handbags." The gallery shifted. The lawyer had no further say. Janelle Brown followed next, and her evidence altered the tide. The most business-savvy of the wives, her integrity was heavyweight. She was visibly uncomfortable, caught between loyalty to her family and honesty. Christine's attorneys slowly guided her through the finances. Janelle affirmed the existence of the family pot and the absence of proper accounting. She acknowledged she also often found herself wondering where the money was spent. She disclosed that once Robyn became a part of the family, the financial dynamics took a dramatic change. What had once been thinly but evenly extended suddenly felt rerouted. The turning point came when Sterling asked directly, "Mrs. Brown, in your observation, was Christine Brown a reckless spender?" Janelle hesitated, glanced at Kody, who was glaring, and then drew in a breath before facing the judge. "No," she said firmly. "Christine was one of the most frugal people I've ever met. She could make $1 stretch into 10. The accusations against her never made sense to me." That moment hit like an earthquake. It hit at the core of the story Kody, and Robyn had convinced everyone about for years. Next was the defense's showstopper witness, Kody Brown himself. His stint on the stand was, as most legal pundits subsequently characterized it, an unmitigated disaster for his own team. He was arrogant, defensive, and long-winded. He lectured the court on patriarchy and plural marriage, and told them that as the head of the household, the funds were his to do what he wanted with. He told them that the wives were supposed to trust him blind. But examined by Hannah Sterling, he broke down. Her queries were incisive, pinpoint. "Mr. Brown, you gave evidence that you thought Christine was spending too much on groceries, true?" he puffed out. "The figures didn't lie," Kody blustered. "Christine's family," he claimed, "had always spent the most." "And did you ever sit down with her, go over her bills, and attempt to see where that money went?" Sterling asked. "I am a busy man," Kody retorted. "I had 4 families. I relied on my wives to be mature. Obviously, that was an error." "So," Sterling said calmly, "you never had evidence of this alleged overspending, you just assumed." Kody spluttered. It was self-evident. The entire family was in financial trouble, and she wanted a larger home. Sterling allowed the silence to hang before continuing. "Mr. Brown, are you familiar with your wife Robyn's spending patterns?" "Robyn is a saver," Kody replied hastily, his defensiveness rising. "She has always been careful about the family's finances?" "Careful?" Sterling raised an eyebrow. "Would you describe it as careful to spend thousands on figurines in a collection while your family was facing foreclosure?" Kody's face turned bright red. "That was an investment, and it is not your concern." The judge's gavel descended. "Mr. Brown, you will respond to the question," cross-examination continued. Kody became increasingly flustered, contradicted himself time and again, and, unbeknownst to him, affirmed the fundamental argument of the case. He had operated a system with no accountability. Decisions weren't made based on figures, but on his own capricious whims, determining who was deserving of resources and who should bear blame. His testimony not only failed to defend him, it worked actively to harm his case, portraying him as an irresponsible and prejudiced patriarch, either as an accomplice to the fraud or in willful ignorance of it. In either case, the impression was disastrous. The playing field was laid for Act 3, Robyn Brown's testimony. Everyone watched as she made her way to the witness stand. If Kody's act had been a failure, Robyn's would be the reverse, a scripted acting job of tears, charm, and manipulation. For years, devoted fans had seen her use emotion as a tool, portraying herself as the constant victim. Her attorneys were obviously banking on that talent now, wearing a plain, high-neck top and her hair pulled back neatly. She was the very picture of an aggrieved woman, prepared to lay out her misinterpreted truth. Her lawyer helped her gently walk through questions regarding the first years of her marriage to Kody. Robyn's voice shook as she discussed the challenges of becoming part of an already settled household, the mutual money troubles, and wanting to be a unifying figure. She said the family pot was Kody's suggestion, a holy covenant, and that she had only ever attempted to be a submissive wife. "Kody asked me to manage the finances because he said I was most organized," she said, blubbing on a tissue. "It wasn't about power, it was about responsibility. I just wanted to make sure the kids were taken care of. It was so difficult, trying to keep everyone happy." She portrayed herself as the altruistic family servant. She talked of late nights hunched over spreadsheets, working to make every dollar go further. She maintained she often did without so others could have more. When asked about the grocery account, Robyn presented a calculated, sinister tale. "Christine has such a big heart," she explained with a voice full of feigned sympathy. "She likes to give her kids the best. But in a family of our size, you can't do name brands all the time. You can't have special snacks all the time." I would try to sit down and explain budgeting to her in a nice way, but she'd get upset. Kody would get upset. I was just stuck in the middle, trying to maintain peace and avoid us getting into debt. She positioned herself as the peacemaker, the rational one, and had painted Christine as emotional, unreasonable, and refusing to listen. It was the same script Robyn had relied on for more than a decade, now honed and delivered under oath. Her attorney questioned her expenditures. "We all made sacrifices," Robyn asserted. "Kody and I lived in a simple way. Any excess money we had always flowed right back into the family fund. My children wore hand-me-downs, We hardly ever went out. Everything was for the family, Robyn insisted. For a second, it nearly convinced. Her act was good. She fixed the jury with a direct stare, eyes welling up with tears, the image of the misunderstood woman. Her attorney finished with the last question. Had she ever knowingly stolen money intended for the family for personal gain? Never, she breathed, as if the charge pierced her very being. I only ever wished to love and take care of this family. The courtroom was in thick silence as Christine's lawyer, Hannah Sterling, came forward for cross-examination. Everyone waited with bated breath. This was the clash. Sterling started out even, almost friendly. Mrs. Brown, you said you were handling basically the everyday money for a number of years. That is correct? I assisted Kody, Robyn whispered. And you also said you are very budget conscious, that you made sacrifices for the sake of the family. Yes, Robyn answered, her voice firmer. It was all for the family. All, Sterling echoed, pausing on the word. Well, let's talk. She swiveled to a big screen in the direction of the jury. Your Honor, the plaintiff introduces Exhibit 47, Consolidated Statements for the Capital One credit card, ending 4,288, issued to Kody Brown Family Entertainment, LLC, January 2017 through December 2021. Mrs. Brown, this was the family grocery account you spoke about, wasn't it? Robyn's eyes darted anxiously to the screen. Yes, that was one of the accounts we utilized. Actually, it was the primary account for grocery purchases in all of the households. Wasn't it? Yes, I think so. And the primary cardholder, the name on all of those charges, was Robyn Alice Brown. That would be you. Yes, Robyn acknowledged softly. Good. Sterling's voice cut. Let's see some of these charges, shall we? March 2018. The family was struggling financially, getting ready to make the Flagstaff move. Here we have a charge on the 14th of March for $472.18 to Victoria's Secret online. There was a wave of gasps through the room. Robyn flushed. I don't recall that specific charge, she stuttered. Really? Sterling cocked an eyebrow. Almost $500 worth of groceries is a lot of groceries. Or maybe it wasn't even groceries. Spill it, Mrs. Brown. Was this a family budget item? It was a personal expense, Robyn grumbled, shooting a pleading glance at her attorney. It was for my husband, for our marriage. For your wedding, Sterling recited, her tone lifeless. At the very time you were informing Christine Brown she couldn't possibly spend the money to purchase her daughter Isabel the gluten-free bread she required for health reasons. You were spending nearly $500 on lingerie from the grocery fund. That is not right. You are distorting it, Robyn cried, anger rising. I am reading from the statements, Mrs. Brown. Sterling did not blink. Let's go on. April 2019. You are in Flagstaff now. The family is swimming in rental bills. Kody is on television, complaining that you are in debt. But here is a charge. The 22nd of April, for $1,850 at a store called Luxury Handbag Emporium. Is that a grocery store, Mrs. Brown? Robyn ground her jaw. Number. What did you buy for $1,850? It was an investment piece. It holds its value. An investment piece, Sterling repeated for the jury. Charged to the account meant for feeding 17 children. Tell me, did Christine get a handbag? Did Janelle? Did Meri? Or was this investment exclusively for you? Robyn stayed silent, glaring at Sterling. But Sterling wasn't finished. Statement after statement appeared on the monitor. More than $2,000 at an upscale furniture retailer in Scottsdale. During a so-called business trip with Kody. Coincidentally, monthly Amazon fees that, when asked to produce itemized receipts, unveiled not rice sacks and beans, but designer children's apparel, electronics, and house decor. Decor for Robyn's rental unit, which was much better outfitted than any of the other wives' residences. Then Sterling brought up what she obviously deemed the crown jewel. Mrs. Brown, you have a hobby, don't you? You collect figurines, precious moments. If I am not mistaken, Robyn's face went pale. It is just a small collection. A small collection, Sterling replied, pointing out a recurring monthly bill from a website called The Collector's Corner. This charge appears every month, regularly, for 4 years. The average, approximately $300. What was this for? Exactly. It was just a little something for me. Robyn muttered, hardly audible. Every own has to have a hobby. That is not a crime, no, Sterling said, her voice firm. It is not a crime to have a hobby, but it is misappropriation when that hobby is paid for using money intended to feed your sister wives' kids. Do you know the sum of these charges during the 4-year period we were looking at? Robyn shook her head, eyes fixed anywhere but the screen. I'll tell you, Sterling said, her voice booming in the hushed courtroom. $14,400 on dolls, while Christine was being lectured for buying a box of cereal her kids liked. That was the breaking point. Robyn leapt from her chair, her face twisted in rage and tears. Stop it! She yelled, pointing a trembling finger at Christine. This is you! You've always resented me. You've always wanted to ruin me and my family. You couldn't handle that Kody loved me and my children. This is all a pack of lies. The judge banged his gavel. Order in this court, Mrs. Brown. Sit down and quiet down, or I will hold you in contempt. Robyn slumped back into her chair, weeping openly. Her attorney attempted to comfort her, but the harm was done. The thin veneer of the doting, wrongly accused wife had dissolved. What the jury saw instead was the bare, unvarnished face of one trapped. The jury gazed on in stunned silence, a combination of horror and disgust marked on their faces. The receipt spoke the truth, and they did not lie. Christine's last witness was forensic accountant David Chen, a composed, meticulous man whose testimony wasn't emotive, but equally devastating. Working with charts and graphs, he followed the money from the television network into the LLC family business and then into multiple accounts. He assured that the Capital One card, which was allegedly the grocery account, was paid out of the family pot, supported by the earnings of every working adult, including Christine's own considerable earnings on the show. Chen then provided his bottom line. During the 4-year timeframe under review, we accounted for $284,000 in non-necessary, personal purchases on the card under Robyn Brown's name. These included luxury items, collectibles, non-family vacations, fine dining, and cash advances at Las Vegas casinos. The word casinos caused another murmur to run through the courtroom, according to a 4-wife allocation plan at the time. He went on in his flat matter-of-fact voice. Christine Brown's fair share of those stolen funds is about $71,000. Adding interest paid, the overall loss to my client is $83,500. He presented the number with a kind of clinical detachment, not an accusation, just facts. Closing arguments were starkly different. Kody and Robyn's attorney attempted desperately to turn the tale around. He contended it was all a misunderstanding, a heartbreaking product of miscommunication in an intricate family. He portrayed Robyn as a frazzled wife, not a calculating money manipulator. This is a family issue, not a federal offense, he begged. To punish this woman, to punish this family, by handing down a devastating verdict would be to hit them while they're down. Yes, errors were made, but they were errors of the heart, not of ill will. Then up stood Hannah Sterling to make her closing argument. She glided down the length of the jury box, meeting the eyes of each juror before she spoke. For a decade, she declared, her voice firm and authoritative, Christine Brown was informed that she was the problem. She was called irresponsible, emotional, unable to handle money. It was a long, calculated effort at psychological warfare designed to make her small and obedient. That is gaslighting, and it almost succeeded. She turned, gesturing toward Kody and Robyn. These two, husband and favored wife, built a kingdom on lies. They preached unity while practicing exclusion. They demanded sacrifice while secretly indulging in excess. They created a financial system, the family pot, not for fairness, but for control. It gave them a way to siphon resources to support a lifestyle the others could only dream of, while blaming the very people they were robbing for the family struggles. Consider the evidence, Sterling urged. Credit card bills do not tell lies. Numbers don't lie. While Christine was watering down juice and reusing Ziploc bags to make it feed her 6 kids, Robyn Brown was purchasing designer pocketbooks and porcelain collectibles, paid for on an account that was intended to supply the family with groceries. That is not a heart mistake. That is a conscious, years-long course of deception. That is financial abuse. She waited, allowing the silence to reinforce her words. We are seeking 2 things. Reparation, every pilfered cent returned, and justice. Justice for the intangible wounds, the fear, the public shame, the soul-crushing self-doubt visited on a woman who was deemed worthless. You can't assign a monetary price to dignity, but you can send a message. You can tell this sort of abuse will not be condoned. You can say to Christine Brown, and to anyone ever gaslit into doubting their own reality, that you are seeing them, believing them, and that the truth is important. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they arrived back, the courtroom was charged with tension. Christine sat bolt upright, hands together, her face white and inscrutable. Standing behind her, her daughters were holding their breath. Robyn wept openly, holding on to Kody's hand. Kody sat rigidly ahead, his jaw clenched, as if a man seeing his kingdom go up in flames. The forewoman, grim and unforgiving, handed the verdict to the clerk. On the count of fraudulent misappropriation of funds, the clerk read out, the jury finds in favor of the plaintiff, Christine Brown. A relieved look passed over Christine's face. She released a trembling breath. Behind her, her daughters quietly cried. On the count of intentional infliction of emotional distress, the clerk went on, the jury finds in favor of the plaintiff, Christine Brown. The judge rendered the verdict. This court directs the defendants, Robyn Brown and Kody Brown, to pay the plaintiff, Christine Brown, the amount of $170,000 in monetary damages, including the principal misappropriated, interest accrued, and attorney fees, for emotional damages experienced over a period of years of manipulation and humiliation. The court awards $150,000 in punitive damages. The total amount is $320,000. The figure resonated within the courtroom, a clear-cut win. Robyn collapsed, her face in her hands. Kody leapt to his feet, his face purple with anger. This is an outrage of justice, he bellowed before his attorney pulled him back down into his seat. It was finished, the gavel descended. Christine didn't shout or scream, she just sat weeping, as her daughters hugged her. These were not tears of grief or anger. These were tears of vindication. For so long, Christine had played the villain in a tale not of her own telling. She'd been called difficult, ungrateful, never happy. She'd been starved of money and of attention, believing her needs didn't count and her efforts were worth nothing. The world had stood by and watched her light grow dim under the weight of that story. But in that courtroom, with that verdict, the truth was finally told aloud. The money itself mattered. It returned what had been taken from her and her children. But the judgment was worth more. It was proof that she wasn't crazy, proof that she wasn't irresponsible, proof that she was never the problem. She had been the victim of a profound betrayal. This lawsuit was never actually about groceries. It was about her. It was about retrieving the years she'd wasted second, guessing her own mind. It was about proving to her kids, and to everyone else, that you don't need to endure injustice quietly. The symbolism was inescapable. The wife once pushed into the basement had emerged and knocked over the stinking edifice of Brown family patriarchy. She stood trial and emerged unscathed. She survived the flames, not charred, but strengthened into a new shape. The Brown family, as we've known it, is finished. This verdict is a line they cannot cross back over. The financial and emotional fallout will be massive. But for Christine Brown, this is not the end. It's the start of something new. She has her voice. She has her truth. She has her justice. The Queen has reclaimed her crown. And here at Reality Recap, we'll be here to cover every twist and turn in the fallout from this explosive trial. What happens next with Janelle and Meri? How will Kody and Robyn ever pay this judgment? This story is only beginning. Make sure you're subscribed. With that notification bell on, you won't want to miss what comes next.